Snafud is a podcast that contains adult themes and language. Listener discretion is advised.
Hey guys, welcome back to Snafud, where the situation's normal, all fucked up. This is the podcast where we tell you stories of true crime, true mysteries, and, well, basically truly fucked up shit that happens every single day, and then we just all seem to forget about it. So we decided that we're here to remind you. I'm Shannon.
And I'm Corey, and thanks for sticking with us, guys. This is part 2 of our little series about the Fatty Arbuckle and Virginia Rappe story and the scandal that changed Hollywood.
Yeah, and before we get there, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to a podcast that I think everyone else should tune in when they're finished listening to us and you have a little bit of a craving for some more stuff. There's a podcast called Obscura, a true crime podcast. It's hosted by Justin S. Drown, and he does a fantastic job of interweaving his story with his facts and with audio that he's found, and then explaining to you like exactly what we're looking at and what's going on in the story. He's doing a fantastic job, and we're going to link him in our Instagram and on Twitter so that you guys can check him out when you're done with us.
So when you guys are looking for more podcasts, we're going to try to always spotlight a few different podcasts that are, similar to us or that we just find exciting. And
yeah, people we really enjoy and spend our afternoons listening to.
Yep.
So what we wanted to do now is our last episode, we left you off with you getting to know who Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle was and who Virginia Rappe was. You got a deep feeling for their upbringings and what they had to work through in order to gain the fame that they got at. And we kind of left you guys off in Labor Day weekend in 1921, where they've both reached incredible stardom, but they're at very different points in their lives. And so now that you have a feeling, or maybe you've been listening to this backwards. Maybe this is the first one you're going to get there. Maybe that'll be exciting. Listen to the case and then make up your mind later.
That's one way to do it, guys. But, we really recommend doing the 10A episode first.
And to my one listener who was so happy that we actually, you could listen to whatever in whatever order and you'd be good. I screwed you up. I'm so sorry. We still love you. If you can forgive us, we ask that.
That's why I alphabetized it by letters, though.
Yeah, Corey did that for you. He was like, we can't let her, leave her hanging. All right, so I want to get into it because this could get long, okay? And we're doing 2 in 1 week, and I told you, it was a lot of research.
Yeah, it could be a few, but we're trying to make it down to 2. So I'm going to take the role of Fatty this time, and we'll have,
He's the furthest thing from Fatty.
I will be telling his story today. We're going to just kind of dive into catching everybody up with where Fatty was. And on the Saturday of Labor Day weekend in 1921, Roscoe Arbuckle and 2 of his friends have checked into San Francisco. And there's a hotel called the St. Francis that they are spending their time at. And like we said in the last episode, they got 3 rooms, 1219, 1220, and 1221. 1220 was a connecting room. That's kind of where the party was going to be. 1219 and 1221 were going to be used for sleeping and holding booze and just your general kind of crashing rooms. But 1220 was the connecting room, and that ended up being the party room. On Saturday evening, a delivery man brings up 4 bottles of gin and scotch. Like we said, this is during Prohibition, so getting the booze is kind of the tricky part, but once you have it, it's yours, and you can't really do much about it.
Yeah, I mean, like we said before, too, Fatty loved his alcohol. He is an alcoholic, and the thing is he's not drinking the cheap shit. If nothing else is available, I'm sure, but his quality of star, something's waiting for him. So we wanted to point out how much alcohol is being brought up to them, because technically, this is very illegal.
But, you look at it nowadays, if you had a few of your friends and you're expecting to pick up people in San Francisco, you get a few hotel rooms, you're going to bring a few bottles of booze. Four bottles of booze among a few different people for a weekend isn't that much
but
to me.
But ordering it through the hotel and it's simply to go pick up your illegal
right.
booze is just, yeah.
Yeah, with that all put in, it's a little bit different. And on Sunday, Arbuckle spends this day in town visiting some of his friends. He runs into May Taub and invites her to join him the next day for a ride in his, quote, gas palace. So that Pierce Arrow we're talking about, that purple car that he spent 4 times as much as the car's worth on upgrades to, yeah, he's going to, offer rides in that car, and that's how he's going to pick up people. And that evening, Arbuckle dines with his friends Sherman and Fishback at the Tate Zinken Cafe. I'm pretty sure it's probably not there anymore, but if it is, shout out to the Tate Zinken Cafe in San Francisco.
Shout out. Give us a free meal when we come on our tour.
Yeah, when we come to see the St. Francis. You guys are only a block away from the hotel. The cafe also has cabaret shows, which, are pretty fun, I hear, and they discreetly served alcohol during this time. So one of your typical speakeasies.
Yeah, I mean, they were one of, the top places in San Francisco at the time to go get your food and alcohol.
Yeah, it was one of 2. So,
see, top.
Yeah, definitely at the top. And the 3 of them, Sherman, Fishbach, and Arbuckle, they spend a late day there, and they're there for a while. And Lowell, Sherman, he ends up flirting with some chorus girls and meets this Alice Blake, who he invites back to the hotel for the next day. And, she's got some dance rehearsal the next afternoon, but he offered to have her come by beforehand, have a drink before you go to dance rehearsal, and I'll drive you over there. And she agrees. So that kind of brings us to...
She's young, they're rich, it's all working out.
And that kind of brings us to Monday morning, and we meet Ira Fort Lewis, who's a women's clothing salesman.
Nobody should be named Ira.
Yeah, especially not a man.
Somebody looked that little baby in the eyes and said, "You're an Ira."
Well, you've also got... Never mind, I won't bring up what's going on
An
in the
A, B, C, D, E?
Yeah, you got... So you got that as a name, too, now. So they just get progressively worse.
Let me skip off to the side. So at one point, I'm working in the hospital. We're talking about crazy names because you get these insane names for people who come through, and then you have to try and say them as you're calling them out in the hallway, and you want to try and sound like, somewhat right. So one of my coworkers says, no, I had this really bad night one night. I had this lady, and the name on it was La with a dash, and then Shonda. And so she called La Shonda. And the woman was angry at her, and she was like, no, it's La Dash Shonda. Got mad because she was supposed to pronounce Dash. It was freaking... It wasn't that exact name, obviously, but Dash was supposed to be said.
That's a weird one, yeah.
But, I mean, people, they've been doing it for a while, and they're not going to stop.
So basically, parents shouldn't be given a license to name their kids, and they should all get government names.
Look your baby in the eye before you name that poor little thing.
Yeah. And so Ira's hanging out at the lobby of the Palace Hotel, and at 11 a.m. he meets with Fishback at the St. Louis, and was preparing to leave when he looked up and spotted Virginia Rappe. And, he's stunned by her looks and asks the hotel bellboy, who's that lady over there? And, the bellboy is like, oh, it's Virginia Rappe, the movie actress.
He points her out, right? But he's too freaking scared to talk to her.
But the weird thing is, I didn't think Virginia was going to be in San Francisco. What's she doing here? Last I know, she's moping around in L.A. somewhere on a couch.
Which is understandable. She's been in a relationship with her fiancé for a number of years, and they literally just broke up. He just moved all the way across the country. Nothing could feel more final when at the same time you're hoping that this isn't even, a real breakup.
Well, I mean, moving across the country seems to be kind of final. That's what I did.
Yeah, well, that's the point. She's hoping it's not. And he's in New York and she's in LA. And in August, Virginia ends up meeting a new person named Al Simnacher. And he's basically a low-level movie publicist. So we have to remember her fiance was a producer. He was making movies and he was starring her in them. So he moves across the country to go be on the stage, and, she's got to find a new inlet to movies again. This is an ongoing process. Just because you've starred in a couple of things doesn't mean you get to keep showing up in them.
Yeah.
So she meets this guy named Al Simnacher. I'm sure she's in hopes that he can help her get some more work. And this guy is basically a 43-year-old who he's in the process of getting a divorce. So he's decided to take a vacation to San Francisco over the holiday. And with him, he's going to bring his new friend, Bambina Ma Delmont. And she's going to be really, really important to this story. But right now, she's not. Just know that nobody really knows her that well. And the point being is, even though Virginia has met Al back in August, this weekend is the first time she is ever meeting Miss Delmont.
Well, and also, back in August, let's be honest here, Labor Day is, the first weekend in September? So
yeah, no,
they've only known each other for like a few weeks at this point.
Yeah, but like, okay, this is just a quick road trip, like up the state, and let's go spend a holiday weekend at a hotel with people. Like, at least he and she should have some money. Like, let's take a little weekend trip. There's another female. It should feel a lot safer. You know, it's just a quick little thing. So basically, what happens is he decides he wants to take a trip up to San Francisco with his friend Maud Delmont. And he invites her to do, like, the trip with them. And he's just saying, basically, like, look, we've seen that you're not getting out of the house. We see that you're upset. And you got to get over it. I'm sorry. Yeah. We love you, and you got to get out. Because you can't, like, mope around. You're a starlet.
Yeah, you always want to have someone that's going to pull you out of that slump you're in.
So she agrees, and she takes the trip. It's like a 2-day trip up to like San Francisco with the three of them. And there is drinking. Again, there's prohibition, but these are the wealthy. And if you got alcohol, you can drink. They're technically young people who, you know, don't have to follow the laws. I don't know. Like,
the laws, you're kind of above the law sometimes. And we've all seen it with the way the celebrities kind of handle shit nowadays too. You know, they don't get arrested for the jump shit that regular people get arrested for.
All right, so they get in the car, they take the drive over, and they basically pull up to the Paradise Plaza that we just mentioned in San Francisco. So she's spotted by Fort Lewis, and that's how Virginia ends up in San Francisco at the same time.
And, you know, so at 11 a.m., Fort Lewis is welcomed into the suite at the St. Francis by Fishback, who's dressed in his daily suit because it's the 20s and everyone has a daily suit. And introductions happen. Fort Lewis meets Arbuckle and Sherman, who remained in their pajamas. And I'm assuming Arbuckle is just trying to be a previous day Hugh Hefner, probably just in a bathrobe and his bright purple pajamas, I'm assuming.
Okay, so yeah, it's like 11 a.m., but basically they just knocked on his weekend. Like, it's freaking the morning.
He is wearing a bright purple robe and these silk pajamas, so even when he's sleeping, he's going to be going above and beyond what most people can do.
Fatty is bigger than life.
Yeah. So the four men are chatting for a little bit of time, and Fort Lewis, you know, is still taken back by Virginia Rappe and mentions her, and so he asks if they all knew her, and, you know, they did. You know, they've seen it. They're in the same industry, and they're all popular and famous actors, so they know each other.
Like, all these guys are actors / producers / directors. She's either acted for them, she's either acted with them, or she's like been in a movie nearby where they were like producing. Yeah, she's no stranger to them, at least not her name. She just isn't friends with these people.
Yeah, it's just different circles at that point. And so Fishback phones over to the palace where Virginia's staying, you know, gives them a message to invite her over to the hotel, and, you know, she accepts that and heads on over.
He basically throws her name out there because he doesn't know any celebrities, and he's face to face with some, and he just saw another one that's gorgeous. He can't get her off his mind, and so them all saying, like, yeah, we know her, we're gonna throw a party later, hey, let's just send her an invite. Like, this is one of those things where we give a call and this pretty girl will come over and we'll spend time with her. So what ends up happening is she gets a message upstairs by a little bellboy, and she gives them a call back, and she tells her two friends that she's on a vacation with, look, got this invite over with Fatty Arbuckle, and I'm just gonna go over there, and if it's dull like I think it's going to be, I'll either be back in like half an hour or I'll give you guys a call.
Yeah.
Like, if it's fun, I'll give you a call either way, or otherwise I'm gonna come home.
Yeah, she's checking in, letting them know her plan, and that way she doesn't just disappear.
But again, let's think about why Virginia would do this and why these guys would do this. We already said she's gorgeous, and they just want a little piece of a fun hanging around the hotel. It doesn't hurt. They're all in Hollywood. Like, you know, this is a regular invite. For Virginia, having lost her fiance / her producer, director, she needs another inlet back into Hollywood. It's not that she isn't a star. It's not like she hasn't, you know, done things to make her name. But, yeah, she needs to make some more connections.
Yeah, you always need someone to fall back on to help you get into the next gig.
And she's been, like, wandering around in the hills of California because she's been so sad and upset. This is the first weekend that her friend's getting her out of the house. And then this falls in her lap. I don't know, but I would have called it fate, and I would have said, yeah, maybe I should just go over there and see how it goes.
Yeah, so, obviously.
So Virginia decides to go over to the St. Francis dressed in one of her self-designed suits. It's like a jade suit. It's gorgeous. It's a deep green. It's all matching from the skirt to the sleeveless blouse. She's got a white silk shirt underneath. She's got this ivory bead necklace, a white Panama hat, and she's got this beautiful little green ribbon on the hat. Like, she just, again, Virginia loves fashion. And on top of it, she grew up not very wealthy, and she grew up also going into the fashion world, so she can make her own clothing, and she does often, and they're gorgeous. Hence why when somebody looks across a lobby and sees this person, they don't even approach her. Like, they're terrified of her because she's just really pretty. She shows up in this, as promised. 20 minutes later, she ends up calling back to her two friends and just saying, we're all here at the hotel and it's quite the party. You guys should come over. There's alcohol. Again, it's prohibition. Like, this is Fatty Arbuckle. Guess who I just suddenly showed up into a meeting with?
Yeah.
So, who comes over instantly but Miss Delmont?
And, she arrives over, and so does Alice Blake, so the chorus girl that was met the night before, as well as a third chorus girl, or a second chorus girl, named Zev Provost.
Yeah, now we're entering the days where girls take up stupid fucking names so they can be in Hollywood.
Yeah, of course. Like City Spreckles.
City Spreckles.
And during the time here, Virginia starts playing some music, and Arbuckle responds, asking if anyone could play the piano. No one could, so he called down at the front desk and had a Vitrola sent up, which is, I believe, an old-timey record player. Mm-hmm. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I own one, actually, from my great-grandpa in England.
Oh, yeah. That's right. I forgot about that.
So basically, it's just a big phonograph. It's a big record player, and you can turn the handle, and that'll make it run. And then you change over different records onto it and have a good time.
Yeah. So they got the Vitrola set up with like 78 records, and now the whole group is drinking and dancing. At about 1:30 in the afternoon, Fishback left in Arbuckle's Pierce Arrow. He had decided to go to the beach because he just really wanted to see some sea lions. Fishback's one of those kind of producers.
Water dogs. He wants to see water dogs.
Yeah, when I'm reading this the first few times, I'm like, the research of it, I'm just think he just really wants to go see some sea lions. And then I realize he's a producer and he's looking for his next, on-site movie location.
Yeah, I mean, this is the kind of guy, the other two guys clearly want to party, and they've been planning on inviting girls over for the last couple days. But this guy, he had that business meeting in the beginning with this guy that came over, and then he's the one that leaves because he wants to go, scan out some, filming areas.
Yeah.
He's just working the whole time.
And now we've got 4 women and 3 men in the room. We got Sherman, Arbuckle, Fort Lewis, and Delmont, Blake, Provost, and Rappe. But, the odds are pretty good in everyone's favor at that point from a guy's perspective.
Is it?
But for Fatty, he doesn't really feel that.
It's a little too much sausage at the party.
So he looks at his buddy Sherman and asks him to give her to Fort Lewis, and that sounds way too gangster. He asks Sherman to ask Fort Lewis to leave because Fishback's gone, so why don't you hit the road too?
Hey, buddy, you aren't here with the guy that invited you.
And
it's over.
Yeah, and so Fort Lewis is like, oh yeah, I guess that makes sense, and he ends up heading out.
And about this time that they send him away, they have Maytab arrive. And if you remember Maytab, this is the girl that Roscoe met and offered her the promised car ride the next day. So hey, remember I have this awesome car and don't you love it?
Yeah, look at this bright purple machine.
She walks into the middle of a party she didn't expect because somebody's supposed to be waiting to take her on a car ride. And there's Roscoe still sitting in his pajamas. So she looks at him and she literally just says, quote, "Who are all these people?" And he just says back, "Search me. I don't know them."
Yeah, and, so he's just playing whatever kind of game he wants to play at this point.
He totally just forgot that he offered a ride and there's a party going on and he didn't technically start it, but he's in it.
Yeah.
So the unfortunate part, at least for May, is that she is the daughter-in-law to a popular evangelist. Well, rather, an evangelist preacher, Billy Sunday.
And, Sunday, he's a huge proponent for prohibition, which puts her in kind of a weird spot. There's booze around, and, they're just kind of drinking.
If her name gets out there, it's going to be a huge problem.
Yeah.
So even though she's offered to stay, she's going to leave. But before she goes, she does get introduced to Virginia. Like, that's the only person at this whole party that Roscoe feels is worthy of, like, hey, before you go, like, please meet this actress.
Well, everyone else just chorus girls.
Yeah, nobody else is actually that important.
Yeah.
So, May decides that she's got to go. And again, it's an ongoing party, because at the same time that May starts to leave, Al Simnocker stops by the party, because even though Virginia called earlier, the only one that came over was Miss Delmont, not Al.
Yeah, I think Al's probably coming over to pick them up, though.
So they both see Al show up, and Al's kind of hoping that they're going to leave, go do some stuff on the vacation. And they both just tell him, like, look, they're having a good time. They want to stay at this party for a while longer. Delmont had even put on a spare pair of pajamas that belonged to Sherman, because she claimed, quote, it was hot earlier.
Yeah.
So, like, she's, like, fully invested. Like, we call her Miss Delmont, but she's not technically, I don't know. She's looking for man.
Yeah.
She's looking for that D. All right. She's a little thirsty, and she can't help herself, and she's already putting on this guy's, like, pajamas, so she clearly didn't want to go anywhere. But, honestly, neither did Virginia. She was having a good time. It's a fun party. So, while they're all there, Al ends up getting roped into agreeing to drive Blake, one of the chorus girls, 1 block back to her rehearsal. Remember, she said, I can't stay the whole time. I have a rehearsal.
Yeah.
So he's like, yeah, I will drive you the block. They leave the party together. They drive all the way that 1 block, which, I mean, like, but
so
think about
far.
how much time that takes to get in the car.
It's going to take more time to get to the car, get in the car, and get the car back on the road than it is to drive the block and come back.
Yeah, because what they find out is they get there and rehearsal's been canceled because it's a freaking holiday weekend.
Oh, God.
So they both decide to turn around, come back to the party.
I'm now having that Pikachu face that's like, oh my God, what was that?
Okay, I can't even make the sounds. Anyway, so they have all these, like, this alcohol. They're making a point. It's ice. There's orange juice. They've brought up food. They have 12 bottles of liquor.
So that goes from 4 to 12 real fast.
Yeah, and here's the thing that people are saying is, like, some of this liquor is from Canada. It's the good stuff. It's fine. Obviously, like we said, the wealthy get the good stuff. But they're also, like, people suggest that they were also getting, like, moonshine. Like, they were getting some more, like,
Moonshine's not necessarily
crackhead
bad.
liquor. Yeah, but it doesn't guarantee, and it's harsher, and it's harder on the body.
That's true. So at some point in the party, Fatty ends up going to the window and jokingly offers to jump from the window if anyone would join him. He said, if I would jump out a 12-story window, they would talk about me today, and tomorrow they would go see some ball games. So what is in life after all? He's getting very,
like, dark and depressed.
Existential drunk.
Ugh, I hate these drunks. You ever been to that party and you get this asshole that's like, let's make it all about me.
Yeah,
like,
they're typically drinking
Woe
Pilsners.
is me. And you just kind of want to actually push them off the, like, balcony.
Yeah, you want to push them off the 12-story balcony.
Not that far. I'm thinking more like a 1-story, like
into
back porch.
Into bushes.
Yeah, they're on the back porch. They're talking shit, and you just kind of, oops.
All right, guy, you need to calm down. You're in way too deep.
Did you see Frank fall in the bushes? Yeah, he's a dipshit.
Yeah, it's exactly the kind of situation that happened there. Later, Fatty and Virginia they're on the couch sitting together, and they're chit-chatting, and they find out they have a lot in common. We've told you their stories in the last episode. They've come from pretty much nothing to very, very poor childhoods and carved their way out and made themselves Hollywood elite at this point.
Yeah, and that's a rare title to hold. Like, as many people as working in Hollywood, not many have broken into especially what Fatty's got, but definitely, like, Virginia's made it to another level too.
Yeah.
So they have things in common.
But even with Virginia's level, like we've been saying, she's probably she's kind of fishing for work and stuff like that. And Fatty is, at the point, the second largest actor, no pun intended, in Hollywood.
He's the largest.
He's probably the largest because Charlie Chaplin was a tiny little guy. But Charlie Chaplin is, number 1 at this point, and Fatty's number 2 probably for build, by what kind of money they're making. And, with Virginia's life being so bleak, she's hoping that maybe Fatty's going to lead to something good. So, at one point during the party, Virginia, like everyone has to, gets up to go to their bathroom. She heads into...
She breaks that seal, huh?
Yeah, she's going to have to. So, it happens to all of us, and we all hate it, because then you're going every, what feels like 10 minutes. She heads over to room 1221, and, tries the bathroom door. It's locked. She knocks, and you've got Delmont in there, and, she asked, and
her girlfriend should let her in.
Yeah, Virginia's like, oh, can I come in? I need to use the bathroom. And Delmont's like, no, you probably shouldn't. Because lo and behold, Sherman's in the bathroom with Delmont.
The guy who's pajamas she's wearing?
Yeah, so it didn't take her very long.
No, this is occupied.
So Virginia ends up heading out of room 1221 through 1220 and into 1219. And she's going to go to the bathroom there. Shortly before 3, Fatty gets up and he enters 1219 and he ends up locking the door.
So basically, he watches her go into the other room, sees that she's gone for a few minutes because she's just been talking to him. And then she comes back out, crosses the room, and basically goes into the other bedroom, and he follows.
Yeah, and... we don't necessarily know 100% what happens behind those closed doors, but we're going to do our best to kind of illuminate what's happening based on what we've been able to get out of research from court cases, testimonials, and an assload of research that Shannon kind of tore the internet apart for and actually had to go buy books.
Yeah.
Do you guys know libraries are still a thing?
So, first of all, I just want to go ahead and point out that I got a lot of my information from a book that's very well written. It's called Room 1219 from Greg Merritt, and he does a fantastic job of letting us know who these people are, just like we wanted you guys to know, but he also delved really deep into, the court case and everything, but we don't want to jump ahead of ourselves. We want you to know just as much as what we feel like we know. So it is difficult to say what would occur next in the St. Francis Hotel because nobody gives a straightforward story. There's not a single story that's told that relies and is the same as anything else. So we're just going to start with the 2 accounts that were given to the police when Virginia passed away. And that's what we wanted to tell you is Virginia's going to die. Yeah,
so this is... you can kind of expect that with everything we've been saying and the fact that there's now a locked door.
This party is about to turn really dark really fast.
But now we're gonna kind of jump ahead to situations after it and stories that are recounting the past few hours.
So according to Alice Blake, who was the chorus girl that was at the party, she decided to tell the police that she was an actress. And in her affidavit, she said, quote, "About half an hour later, Miss Delmont tried to get into the room, but the door was locked. She banged on the door, and Arbuckle came out. As he opened the door, we heard Miss Rappe moaning and crying. Quote, I am dying, unquote. Arbuckle came out and sat down and said to us, go in, get her dressed, and take her back to the palace. She makes too much noise." So then we have another statement, and that's from Roscoe Arbuckle himself, and that is... Quote, "We sat and had some drinks, and pretty soon Miss Rappe became hysterical and complained that she could not breathe and began to tear her clothes off. At no time was I alone with Miss Rappe. There were half a dozen people in the room at all times."
I don't think that number exactly works for the guest list we've been providing, but...
So you're probably thinking, what the fuck? You said she walked into a room, and he walked into a room, and now you're saying she's dead, and this is what you're telling me has been said about it?
And I think he's misunderstanding the difference between a room and a suite. But, all right, Fatty, we'll let you go with that.
What they told the police was that Virginia had gone into this room, gone hysterical, and came back out being carried by Roscoe Arbuckle himself to the room 1227. He then called the hotel doctor, Dr. Olav Carbo, and Dr. Carbo felt in his medical opinion that Virginia had over-imbibed and she was just simply drunk. So he gave her a shot of morphine because that fixes everything.
It really does.
You're too drunk. Here's some morphine. And he left. He basically, you're drunk. Here's some morphine. And he left her. At midnight, when the morphine wore off and Virginia woke up, she started to scream. Fucking bloody murder. Maud Delmont, who had been staying right beside Virginia's side, even though she barely knew her, goes and calls the hotel doctor because she's certainly awake now. And this time it's a Dr. Arthur Beardsley who comes upstairs and he injects Virginia with another shot of morphine to shut her the fuck up. And he leaves. Because, it's nighttime. We don't do medicine during the day. When the medicine/morphine wears off again at 5 a.m., the doctor was summoned one more time, and he administered the third shot of morphine. So then that's when Maud Delmont tells the doctor that Virginia had not urinated in over the last 15 hours.
That's a long time.
It's a long time to be laying in bed and not be able to pee.
Yeah.
The doctor decides to give her a catheter, and it doesn't work. It only produces a small amount of urine, and that urine is actually tinged with a really dark color of blood. This would I'm not a doctor, but I certainly know this. That's not good.
Yeah, no, that's definitely got to be internal bleeding somewhere.
So, however, the doctor did think good enough and decided that he wanted to leave his patient there to rest. And so Delmont, who's unhappy with the care at this time, that didn't work and the guy thought it was fine. No. She decides she's going to give a phone call to a physician that she knows who's named Dr. Melville Rumwell. It really flows off the tongue.
Yeah, that's a real great name.
So Dr. Rumwell has his own private practice, but he's also an assistant professor of surgery over at Stanford University Medical School. And he's also the head of Stanford's outpatient clinic. So he's no schmuck.
Now, this is a big call. I mean, remember, Maud knows Virginia for all of 72 hours at most at this point. She's the ultimate wing woman. Yeah,
so she calls and he agrees that he can take over Virginia's care, but only once she's discharged by her current care. Pretty understandable.
Is a cycle of hotel doctors, which I'm assuming is no better than the school nurse.
But it has to happen. I can't take over your care if you don't sign off that your previous doctor is done. So, simple enough. So they do. He arrives at the hotel by 9 a.m., He looks Virginia over, and since he finds no visible signs of injury on her body, so he decides that when he looks her over and he asks her what happens in 1219, on top of that, she can't remember. She says she's lost consciousness when, Roscoe was in the room with her, and that something happened and she was in agony and now she can't remember. And all she knows is there's pain in her lower abdomen all the way up to her chest. So his diagnosis then becomes alcohol poisoning. You can't remember what happened. You feel pain. You drank too much.
That doesn't seem logical, but okay.
But at this time, he's going to start referring to it as alcoholism. So I just want to make the difference at this time. He's an early time doctor for us. He's calling it alcoholism, where we would say that's like a dependency problem. To him, alcoholism means you OD'd. His suggested treatment for Virginia is that she needs to go, and the only thing they need to do for her now on is no more morphine. She's just going to get hot compresses on her midsection where it hurts.
So on Tuesday morning, this is the 6th of September, Thaddeus hang around talking with Al Semnecker, the guy who brought Virginia to San Francisco, and they both kind of get to the agreement that Virginia got sick from drinking too much. And as a result, by noontime, Fatty's paying the $611 bill to the hotel for all the rooms, including 1227 where he brought Virginia.
The night before. So, just to point out, this is the next day.
Yeah, and then he and his two buddies, they pop up in the Pierce Arrow and, they head to Pier 7 on San Francisco Bay to board a steamship to bring them back to L.A. And he ends up leaving. It's a 14-hour trip to get back to L.A. by the ferry and car. So, while on board, Fishback saw one of his friends and quickly introduced the woman and her daughter to Fatty. And at his invitation, they ate dinner with the Hollywood Three at the stateroom. And, Fatty becomes quickly smitten with the 21-year-old Doris Dean. And he made a date for them to get together on Saturday evening before the boat even docked. He meets her for all of dinner time and they're going on a date. So he's moving pretty quick.
Yeah, he's got zero shits for what just happened at this party. This, girl that's 10 years younger than her.
Yeah.
Him.
And at the same point, Virginia is still laying in the bed. She's going to have 3 different nurses attend to her. Jean Jameson, Vera Cumberland, and Martha Hamilton. Their care comprises of catheterizations, enemas, and hot compresses. So all the great things that make the body terrible.
If you've ever seen Dracula, Dead and Loving It, you know that enemas fix everything.
No, they do not.
Give him another enema! Not another
one! And, her physician finally checks in on her on Thursday the 8th and found that she's in no better condition. He surmised that maybe it wasn't alcohol poisoning at all, but a severe kidney infection and possible venereal diseases.
Later, you're not sick from over drinking?
Yeah. Around noon, he admits her to the sanitarium of Dr. W. Francis Wakefield, who specializes in gynecology and obstetrics. Many will question why she's brought here instead of to a hospital, but it would be that the sanitarium here is the closest medical facility. It's only 6 blocks from the St. Francis.
We're misunderstanding the term sanitarium, I think.
I think everyone does, because you think of it as like a loony bin.
Yeah, you think it's a crazy house.
It's more equivalent, a doctor's office. You have those specialized doctors that are, eye doctors, gynecologists. They have their own specialty, and that's kind of where she's being brought. It's the closest facility. And here, Dr. Rumswell is, he's got staff privileges, and he's also got 2 fully staffed operating rooms.
Yeah, so, he's got like everything at his disposable.
Yeah.
Disposable. He's got everything at his disposal.
Disposal.
Like a disposable camera.
So, Virginia has had a rough go of it for the past few days. On top of the whole injury and whatever happened behind closed doors, she's laying in a hotel room in pain for 3 days. She's being knocked out with morphine and then, switched to catheters and compresses before she gets any real treatment. They're just kind of like trying to shut her up at this point. We don't really know why it took 3 days to get her out of the hotel, but, it did. And on Thursday afternoon, Rumwell examines Virginia again, and he believed that her condition was a result of the alcohol poisoning. And
she called alcoholism. I think it's funny.
And, the resulting kidney lesion infection that he thought he ended up finding in her. He arranged for a Murphy drip to be administered rectally and for Virginia to have morphine shots every 4 hours because morphine's a cure-all at this point.
So, I'm sorry. This is why it really matters to me, and I'm going to cut in one more time. Virginia got hurt, sick, something happened at a party. They gave her a catheterization, and nothing came out. And now this guy is rectally administering a drip instead of a normal fucking drip in her arm or like somewhere else in a good vein. Like, he feels like this needs to be administered to her rectally. So this is what's happening to her. Like, I cannot express enough how unnecessary this is, how wrong this is.
Yeah, anything with the human body, though, I'm just done with.
I mean, at least they're back to morphine shots, so she's got some painkiller.
Yeah, but that's not treating anything.
This is just freaking nonsense.
He returns back that same day at about 9:30 at night, and he finds that Virginia's in drastically worse condition than she was earlier that day.
Shocker.
Her pain's acute, her lower abdomen is distended, which I don't even want to know the definition for.
It means pushed out.
And that's gross. And her pulse is elevated. He now thought that she had an inflammation of the abdominal lining and cavity. And the cause, he guessed an infection by a ruptured fallopian tube or bladder. Rumswell had 2 other doctors look at his case and concur with him. They all agreed that in her present condition, she may not survive. So they placed her on antibiotics to fight any kind of infection that she could have.
So basically, they knew something was wrong inside, but she's so bad at this point, she's got to be on antibiotics in order to even make it through. Like, they don't think they can even do surgery, and she'll survive it. But unfortunately, so for Virginia, at least she's still in California, and her friend Spreckles, Miss City Sparkles, remember? She's living out there in San Francisco, where Virginia still is right now. So she hears what's going on because they call her. Virginia actually asked Delmont to telegraph, get in touch with Sparkles and to telegraph Henry Lerman in New York. And so Delmont did all that for her. So Delmont telegraphs Kate Hardenbach, Virginia's aunt, who is also in LA. So, basically, she just told everyone, please contact these 3 people. This is very important to me. And Maud did so. And so then, as soon as Spreckles heard, she came to Virginia's side, basically by Friday morning. But by then, Virginia is so sick, she's just rolling in and out of consciousness that Miss Spreckles didn't think that Virginia even, knew who she was. And allegedly, Virginia said something along the lines of, quote, "Oh, to think I led such a quiet life, and to think I would get into such a party," unquote. Which just seems strange, unless she's just saying, here, I thought this was my big break, and it's not. So when Spreckles returned with a telegraph response from Lerman, Virginia had already slipped into a coma, so her ex-fiancé had sent a message back, and it was too late to even tell her about it. And then Spreckles decided to call her own pastor, Mr. James Gordon, who came immediately to their side. And when he saw Virginia, he just dropped to his knees. She looked so bad. He fell to his knees and he prayed for her recovery and more or less her spiritual peace. And then at 1:30 p.m. on September 9th, 1921, all alone in her room, with nobody to hold her hand or tell her they love her, Virginia Rappe died.
And after someone dies, it's sad. But next we have towards Virginia's funeral. And Virginia is lying in a cushioned bed at the Halstead and Company Funeral Home in San Francisco. She's kind of looking like a bride. She's got a beautiful lacy veil, and people are ushered to pass to see her on Thursday, the 15th of September. And women are gawking at her as they only know her from newspapers. She's this real-life celebrity, movie star, model. Everyone knows everything about her.
Imagine Jennifer Aniston passed away in your town. And she's passed away, but not only that, but they put her on display at the local funeral home. And you can just come in and walk by. Like, you kind of know, you think you know a lot about her, but it's been a while, And so, like, she's just a point of amusement for them.
Yeah, and, some of her old friends may have been there from her year living in San Francisco, and as well as
City Sparkles.
Yeah, City was there. Maud Delmont had attended and had to be helped after she collapsed. And this is a girl that she'd known for a weekend, and she was there during the worst part of her life.
Yeah, I don't think that's why Maud was collapsing, though, but we'll get there.
Whatever.
Don't be fooled, you guys.
Surrounding her were thousands of flowers, and 1,000 pink lilies had been sent by Henry Lerman, her fiancé. In large gold letters on the card, it read, "To my brave sweetheart, from Henry Lerman." Lerman paid for the cost of the funeral and sent instructions for the undertaker to whisper "Henry loves you" in Virginia's ear when he closed the casket. And
I'm sorry, it's just one of the sweetest things that, like, could possibly, I don't know, like, I think a lot of us think that we will, if we ever went away, if we ever died, who would be doing this? And we don't always know that there would be somebody like this. But when Virginia passed, I don't even know that she knew that Henry would do this. This is why she didn't think this was over, And he loved her so much that he was still treating her like a little girl or like someone he loved. Like, you have to let her know, like, the last thing she hears before that casket closes is that somebody loves her. She knows that. I just think it's one of the sweetest things I've ever heard.
And via his instructions, on Friday, she's loaded onto a train that's bound for Los Angeles. Sunday in Los Angeles at the Strother and Dayton Funeral Home on Hollywood Boulevard, thousands of people had came to see her during the 6-hour viewing. Again, sometimes these things become spectacles, especially if someone's very famous.
Strange, just like our first episode.
Yeah, or strange. Just Monday morning, the funeral was a closed event to only close friends and relatives.
As it should be.
Police had to keep bystanders at bay, and in attendance to the funeral were Mildred Harris, who's Charlie Chaplin's teenage ex-wife. That's a whole other thing that we're never going to unravel today. And there's also, her family and her friends are there.
I mean, basically, it's a who's who of Hollywood people showing up at her funeral, carrying her casket, crying in the crowd. Like, these aren't, the friends and family are family, but it's also, like, people, like, if you were to go to the movies at that time, like, every single one of them is in that movie.
Yeah.
And they're upset. Like, Virginia meant something to them because they all did this together. So even though he paid for the funeral, he sent all these flowers, he had direct instructions for the funeral directors, Henry couldn't make it to any of the events that he paid for Virginia. Not the one in San Francisco, not the one in LA. Unfortunately, travel back then took too long.
Yeah, and he's over in New York, so he's got to go cross country.
Yeah, he's all the way.
You can't just hop a flight in the 20s.
He can send the instructions, he can get it paid for, but to get on a train and get there, so he missed everything. He couldn't be there for her. And,
that's kind of the worst part about this whole thing. To me, one of the worst parts of it.
And I don't know, I think it kind of led into him having a lot of guilt on his part, even though he paid for everything. They were broken up and he was upset. So it led him into this rampant amount of telegraphs pleading with attorneys to prosecute Roscoe Arbuckle to the fullest extent. Like, he felt that Roscoe had done this. Like, Virginia just didn't die. People don't just die, at this age for nothing. Like, she went to a party with this guy. He knows this guy. He has a feeling.
Yeah.
And so the crowd around the gravesite that ended up showing up for Virginia's funeral and burial was estimated at 1,500 people. And on September 13th, Virginia was put to her final resting place beside a lily pond in one of the most famous cemeteries in Los Angeles, which is now considered the Hollywood Forever Cemetery. You can visit her right now, and you can tell her hello and I'm sorry. And unfortunately, that's where we're going to leave you for this one, because like we said, it's a multi-part special, and everything just turns out too long, and we want you to get the story like you're supposed to. Like, we want you to know who she was. We want you to know what happened to her. And in our next episode that's going to come out in the next day or so, we're going to tell you guys about the trial cases that came up because of what happened to her. And we'll tell you eventually what caused her death and how people paid for it.
Yeah, so, we're kind of building up to, I guess, not necessarily the grand finale, but, for our 10th episode, well, it'll be 12 at this point, we're going to have
Hence why I didn't want the ABC.
Well,
you're too anal.
No, it does. It's not 11 and 12. They're part of 10. They're just us breaking things up so that it's a little bit more digestible. Like, we could leave it as a 5-hour episode, but we know that that's going to scare anyone. So
we love you guys.
So if we break this up into an hour and 15 and 3-hour segments or so, then it's going to be a little bit better.
Yep. So, like I said, in a day or two, we're going to post the next episode, and that's going to be going through the very end, and so we're going to conclude our trilogy here. And till then, we look forward to talking to you guys, and thanks for hanging in there. We love you.
See you guys later.
Bye.